Hi, it's Romy, Sagittarius. Thanks for tuning into the channel. This is your June 2021 soul story. If your sun rising or your moon is in the sign, you might find this general reading just gives you a few insights and some updates on the astrological events that are going to be taking place this month. So we're into Gemini season, and now you know what you know. Everything changes, right? We had the full moon lunar eclipse in your sign on the 26th. Actually, it's today that I'm filming that for you. So all in your energy. And we open up your reading with the Three of Wands, and there is this leveling up quality, and it's as a direct result from you being leveled. You know, we can't have these eclipse energies and storylines playing out with us in the South Node without us being irrevocably changed and impacted on some level. And so whether you're feeling that on the internal shifts and deeper within your own energetic self, or there has been really profound changes happening in your life in the build up to and perhaps the aftermath of these powerful dates, you know, you are still, I think, through the month of June coming to terms with what that means and dealing with the fallout of that energy. Now we have the culmination of the story, if you like, with the new moon solar eclipse in Gemini. And they're going to be intrinsically linked to one another. So the conversation continues, the narrative moves forward. And it's really this ask of what is it that you are now reaching for? Because there's this potency and this power to the month of June that we really want you to harness and capitalize. Gemini is a fellow mutable sign. So this beautiful spiraling energy allowing you to shapeshift and, you know, set for this expansion to take place. Now, remember, as we move more deeply into retrograde season, a lot of that expansion is happening on the inside. But what we're asking of you is to level up within yourself and to have the courage and confidence to relentlessly, unapologetically, but most important, authentically reach for the things that matter to you. And yes, there is a lot that is being asked of you this month of June, and we have this kind of dizzying amount of change, this overloading amount of information that's going to be making its way towards you. And we have this kind of me versus we energy as we're in that seventh house in Gemini season especially, and the interaction that you have with key people in your life is going to be showing you a lot about where you have the capacity to hold more of the hard stuff than you actually thought possible, believe it or not, but also where you also get to celebrate and enjoy more of the good stuff. And I suppose the questions that you're asking yourself is, you know, a really deep reflection on where some of the muck, some of the things that you've had to unearth and that have been uprooted as a result of the way that these eclipse energies have moved through your sign, what you're now going to do with that and how you want to take it forward. And for me, the Chariot energy, I love this coming in for you because it's just this powerhouse of determination, of the will to succeed, the will to move forward and to take what you've learned and make it have meaning, like make it count for something. And that's in a backdrop of like knowing and not knowing. Yeah, it's in that sense of loving things but still longing for certain things, feeling the beauty but also feeling the pain. It's like that polar opposite, that sense of really extreme duality that Gemini can highlight so poignantly for us in the season, that says, you know, regardless of where I find myself and how I need to try to kind of maintain control, the most important thing is that I'm seeing growth and that I'm actually allowing myself to move forward. Now, of course, these eclipse energies can bring powerful changings and endings, but you look like you're in an energy, Sagittarius, where you're just like, you know what, I've just got to keep going right now. I've got to keep moving. So I'm not seeing you kind of being knocked to your ass and just sitting there in a state of sort of, okay, what now? And even if you do find yourself in that kind of an energy or have done, there is a very quick process of recovery because there's an appreciation of understanding what's no longer good for you, what's no longer tolerable for you. And in this process of becoming, which isn't like an end state, by the way, this is like a continuous, like beautiful evolutionary process of change. There is like an increasing amount of self-trust that's coming in that is going to make a big difference in terms of the way that you approach things and the lens with which you are seeing stuff coming out for you. Now, seventh house can also deliver some of those really sort of interesting power struggles. It's almost like it's the house of like open enemies, isn't it? But the good thing about that is even during like Mercury retrograde, you're getting a really clear indication of where some of these power struggles might be being played out for you in some of the key connections in your life, whether it be personally or professionally. Now, let's be aware that just after that new moon solar eclipse in Gemini, we are also seeing the second of this Saturn squaring Uranus transit. The first happened on the 17th of February. Now, that one may well have blindsided you a little bit because there wasn't an anticipation of what it was going to be provoking for you. Now, you understand there's a continuation of that narrative in some form or another. Maybe not an exact repeat because we are meant to have lived and learned the experience of what it was trying to show us. Remember, squares are about putting us under pressure so that we can find some sense of growth as a result of what we learn, what we process, and how we can start to actualize that into something meaningful for ourselves. So your Emperor energy comes in, and there is this sort of puppet string quality here of just, you know, being really aware of what you're tethered to that isn't comfortable, but also this sort of urgency and this pull from the universe that says, this is where we now need to take control and take command of something. This is where we need to step up. Your Three of Wands, your Chariot. This is where your ambition that might have been latent or has been avoided, suppressed, or kind of pushed to the back of the queue to a certain extent is now coming right up front and center stage and saying, look, you know, this is what's here for you. This is a life that's ready to be seized. And because we are now more able and more willing to say, do you know what, the road might not be easy. The Chariot has to carve a new path, often, you know, in inhospitable circumstances, and feeling like we don't know if we have what it takes. And yet the desire for expansion, the desire to follow that through and to actually get moving is more important. And so the collective energy of these guides coming in for you this month, I feel, is like a real powerhouse of energy that can be harnessed really beautifully. But the important thing is, from a wisdom perspective, that you actually pay attention to what the universe is being, you know, indicating to you through some of the experiences that have taken place. So Venus moves into Cancer on the 2nd of the month, and you know, in that energy there's some deeper transformational work at play, and you know, there's a sensitivity there that is required in certain situations, and there might be a tenderness of feeling like I don't know, some of those key conversations or the way that people are treating us or how we're treating ourselves might have a little bit of a rub. There might be a little bit of oversensitivity happening in that instance. But Venus in Cancer wants us to feel our way into things, to take time to really experience it so that our emotions are fully aligned with what's happening. And there's a very nurturing kind of cozy, warm feeling that comes through with that energy that can be really helpful as you're in this very introspective vibe with now Saturn, Pluto, Mercury retrograde. Jupiter joins the party on the 20th, taking a backspin in Pisces. We then have Neptune going retrograde at the end of the month on the 25th in Pisces as well. And so some deeper spiritual journeying taking place. And Temperance comes in, of course, linked to your sign Sagittarius, that says, all right, where do we just need to bring a little bit of moderation and balance into this whole equation here? I like Temperance as I look at the power and the energy of the movement with the Chariot, because it's also making sure that the direction that we go in and that we move towards is the right one for us. And so be prepared for the universe to kind of deliver things that sort of stop you in your tracks and just ask you those poignant questions at the right time. And it might come by way of conversations from other people, or just, you know, your own intuition speaking to you that just says, are you sure? Are you sure you want this? And so sometimes that backspinning retrograde energy of the slowdown can be helpful when things feel very dizzying and rapid and, moving at such a pace in that kind of Gemini energy that we feel like we're being swept up in something or caught up in something. I also think it's really important with the energy of temperance for you to kind of go a bit easy on yourself. You have to have patience with yourself through this transitionary process right now, Sag. This means that you also have to understand that you're going to be seeing people for who they are and not who you want them to be. And sometimes that can land quite hard, because if you've had a rose tinted glasses on or there's been a certain expectation and that eclipse has just kind of annihilated or shattered that beyond repair, then there's a kind of coming to terms and a recovering aspect of that feels necessary just for you to find your balance again. I also love this energy coming in as we welcome the solstice through the course of June. So the midpoint of the year when the sun stands still, and in the northern hemisphere it's that longest day to reflect, in the southern hemisphere the shortest day, but it's all about how we balance things up within our world, the harmonization and finding that sense of centeredness within the self again. And as the sun moves into Cancer the day before, we also have a Venus trining Neptune on the same day as the solstice. So this beautiful water energy that's going to make it feel exceptionally emotional, but also very helpful in allowing us to access emotions that we might have switched off. And that's going to go for people around you as well. So if you've been having that kind of cool, detached, kind of emotionally unavailable kind of vibe coming at you from different people, expect that there's a warmth and a melting kind of energy that comes in, because Mercury will have also gone direct by that point, which means that things start to open up a little bit more easily by way of conversations and the narratives as well. But that's just a gorgeous time for you to kind of just find your still point, and just almost like recalibrate your energy a little bit, just so you're ready for that next big push. So it might take that whole first part of June just to kind of almost sift and sort your way and gather all this information that's kind of flying at you from so many different ways, from a spiritual perspective, an energy perspective, but just also on a very day-to-day practical perspective as to what you're supposed to be doing, why you're doing it, what plans you have in place to actually achieve that, and how you go about finding the determination, the endurance and the resiliency in some ways to continue this kind of relentless, unapologetic directive towards things that matter. So the energy of the Fool coming in here, I love this for you, right at the center of your reading. Gorgeous energy to be working with. And the eclipse undoubtedly will bring something to a point of closure or release. Now, some of you might not experience that straight away. It might be in the coming weeks, but it could certainly indicate what's about to unravel or come to a point of ending. And sometimes that can be a difficult place to sit. But at the same time, both your Three of Wands and your Fool for me is like, let's just dig deep and find that sense of let's just go for it. Let's do it. What would it be like if I really bet on myself in this moment? What would I be capable of? Where could I end up? I might have been taken down. I might have fallen flat on my face. This might have been ripped away from me. I might have had to come to terms or acknowledge this with like a really strong wake-up call. But at the same time, the universe is delivering at the very same moment this burst of fresh, invigorated, vibrant energy that says, come on, okay, like now let's see what you're really capable of, because you've just almost through shattering your heart, through opening your mind and it being blown wide open by some of the kind of epiphanies that you've had about yourself and about other people through the course of the last few weeks. Like we said, your capacity to be able to hold more of what feels like challenges and obstacles and actually deal with them in a different way and still give yourself permission to say, I'm going to go after what I want. There's a brilliantly adventurous feel coming in here for me with the energy of the Chariot and the Fool. And we need to be careful it's not reckless. And certainly sometimes in that eclipse vibe, we can end up sort of feeling a little bit out of control. And so again, if that's your experience, or perhaps you're observing it with people around you, just be aware. And I think that's where we've got Temperance coming in to just say, okay, we just need to kind of slow it down and just make sure that, our impulsive choices and decisions, especially with Mars moving into Leo on the 11th, fellow fire sign, everything gets lit up, and, our motivation is the desire to kind of make it happen and go big or go home is kind of like the vibe with it. But we just want to make sure it's on the right terms for us, and we're doing it in a way that's going to be expansive for us. Jupiter going retrograde in the sign of Pisces on the 20th. Brings the magnification and the expansion back into the internal. Jupiter likes to be in Pisces, and it is like a really strong indicator of what's set to be unfolding later in the year when it moves fully into the sign. But again, this introspective time could have you feeling a little bit caged or a little bit kind of frustrated that there is some aspect that you're ready to see growth and feels like it's contained. But remember, the cage door is open here. You already have your wings. Everything is like prepped and ready to go. However, there's a missing piece of the puzzle here. There's something that the universe wants you to understand that has to be gained by way of you almost stepping back and stepping in. And when that lands for you, it just feels like all systems are go, all green lights here, Sag. So where we have that moment of feeling like we're almost applying a more stressful energy around us than we need to, I guess I would be asking the question, like, what are you doing right now that's kind of causing that? Because it feels like there might just be an energy of readiness. It's like we know what we want, but are we really ready for it? And so there's this pause where it's just like just before you take that leap of faith with the energy of the Fool, and you're just kind of having that last talk with yourself to clear out some of the doubts. And I think that's required so that you can fully commit to it. So I wouldn't be looking at this as feeling it's here to block you. Rather, it's here to teach you. And at any moment, there's going to be this kind of, your head's going to lift and you're going to realize that actually, like, okay, I am ready and I'm ready now. And when that happens, there is just this sense of actualizing the goals in a much more grounded way. Now that works in beautifully with the full moon, which is going to be in Capricorn on the 24th of the month. So nice earthy energy. Let's also look back to what was being invested in the initial part of 2021. So where you put a lot of time, dedication and energy, you're set to see some beautiful rewards and things come to fruition in and around that moon time. And it is one of these kind of reminders again that where we apply our focus, our diligence, our kind of determination to want better for ourselves, to want more for ourselves, and when we really kind of give ourselves the opportunity to give the best shot that we have, extraordinary things can happen. And I have a sense of around that full moon, we are certainly looking to see something like moving much more rapidly. The day before you've got Sun trining Jupiter, so the expansion at that point can be big. It can be on a bigger scale, and you can kind of scale that mountain much more easily than perhaps what you'd expected or anticipated previously. So this whole month for me, when I'm into Sagittarius energy, is really this sense of knowing what you now know and the application of that to a degree that's going to really support you actually prioritizing some things that you can't live without. And perhaps you've tried, perhaps there's been this part of you that says, okay, I'll give it a chance to do it your way, or I'll try to fit in this industry or this career or this job, or, I'll try this certain way of living or this relationship. And there's just this like cold kind of hard light of day moment that lands for you. If it hasn't already, it's coming. But it isn't in a cruel way, it's just in a really honest way. And yes, what comes with that is a level of grief, a level of loss, a level of like disappointment that something that you anticipated and expected to come in a certain way hasn't been realized. But at the same time, it also just lets you off the hook of it, because if you really were honest with yourself and you think about how much energy and time you invested into that, and also the kind of the stress and almost the tension that existed within your body as you held on to the hope of it. Now you've been kind of cut free from it. You've been let loose. And so there is this sense of kind of liberated energy that's coming in June, but you're still sort of figuring out what that feels like. And there might still be some lingering stress or kind of the fallout energy that you're having to sort of wade through a little bit, you know. It's interesting because, you know, she's holding on still to this kind of branch with the two flowers that are above the water, obviously looking back to one that's half submerged. And what we're going to see happening, because if you can look at the energy of the Fool here, there will be this moment where you do turn your head away from what has been lost and actually more fully towards this flower that does represent the yellow flower of this beautiful, radiant, vibrant new opportunity, new person, new experience, new idea, new thought. It's just like it's something that's coming in that's going to say, listen, all isn't lost here, and not everything might be as it seems. You know, this Mercury ruled Gemini season in retrograde has a tendency to kind of blur the lines and create this haze that can make you almost feel like you're caught up in one particular storyline. And as soon as those clouds start to clear, what you'll realize really quickly is that actually things are not as heavy or as challenged in all aspects as perhaps you first thought or considered. I just have this like beautiful like tailwind energy that comes in and blows like a bunch of doors wide open right at the moment as you're turning your head. And I think that's really important because you need to feel like things are opening up for you, not closing down for you. And of course there might still be for some of you like the processing energy that's going to be taking place if there's major changes that have happened or things that have moved in or out of your life. And part of that's going to be like a reconciliation with yourself about, okay, what's my next move here? Like, and how do I kind of, how do I reconcile that within myself? Now, your Five of Wands is a sharp reminder that some of the agendas, some of the power plays, some of people's determined narrative for the month of June is going to be one of causing chaos. It's going to be one of pettiness. It's going to be one of fear-based projection because they're so uncomfortable with what's happening in and around their world. They feel uprooted. They feel upheavaled. And remember, what we're looking at between this Gemini-Sagittarius axis is the conversation between the higher and the lower mind. And so, you know, Sagittarius energy representing that expression of the highest, spiritual philosophies and ideas is asking of you, like, rise above this. Don't be caught up in it. Don't be moved into the ego place where you start to make choices and decisions based on the provocation or, you know, blindly being reactionary to other people's stuff, you know. And I think it's going to be sharply shown to you in more than one occasion through the course of this month, and you're going to have an opportunity to do things differently for yourself. You know, these fives at the root of your reading, they bring about this level of contrast that requires some tenacity, you know, on your part, to kind of hold them in a container and say, all right, I accept what this is, that there might be some pain, some loss, some grief, some challenge, some disagreement, some energy here that isn't sitting well within me. And yet, do I have an opportunity to still understand what that's showing me and move forward anyway? Yes, I do. And that's really where you're going to be able to learn most from what this month has to give you. Now, it could be really hard to ground for you through the course of this month. You know, Gemini energy taking you up into the clouds a little bit, and then even into Cancer season with that water just sort of flooding your emotions a little bit. So be aware that kind of exhaustion is quite likely, just on sort of multiple levels, feeling emotionally exhausted, and mentally kind of a little bit wired. So what is it going to take to root back into your own physicality, your vitality and well-being? Really important that you kind of get a plan almost ahead of the month. And you know, fine if you're watching this mid-month or toward the end, you can start at any point, but it's like, what does my body need right now to sort of to be rooted so that I can cope and I can have a container to hold all of this stuff that I've got going on right now. Really important that you feel into that. She's holding on to the root here, so just that sense of something to ground and root you and keep you leveled, you know. You're going to be experiencing things really differently. That includes energetically. You know, your consciousness has gone through just like a whole leveling up and an opening up, and you might be seeing things for the first time or having observations or awarenesses intuitively, and that's just going to be like almost like walking into like a brand new world at times. And you know, so much still in flux, so that you're dealing with the old and the new, that it could just be really disorientating. I love the Ace of Pentacles by way of just you getting some sharp inspiration about what can happen next and where you can take something forward. Remember, it's about that sort of raw potential that we're tapping into. And what we see with that is that it's almost by way of the contrast. The Five of Wands and Eight of Swords are kind of closeting this Ace of Pentacles and the Fool here. It's really interesting. It's like you're kind of waiting for that new start to begin, but there's some sense of resistance. Is it from the self or is it from outside of you? Well, perhaps a little bit of both, but what it's containing or what it's inviting you to do, I think, is to reflect inwardly on what you need to shift or release or change so that you can allow that to come forward. Now, I think that there's good offers coming your way, but for some reason you also feel conflicted about that. Okay, might not be so straightforward, might be a little bit of a compromise, might feel quite stressful because of what it's demanding or asking of you. Do you have what it takes? 100%. If it's on a relationship level, is it someone that's coming with conditions? I think it is. And I think that has everything in terms of teaching you about where you're ready to articulate what's okay and what's not okay, and where your boundaries now sit and how you want to show up within these connections, personally or professionally. So it's going to be a really interesting month where I feel you will be tested a little bit by the universe, but only so that you can see for yourself the ways in which you've really grown. Yeah, so let's have a look at these oracle cards, Sag, and see what is coming through for you. Perfect storm, the courage to step into life. Oh, I love that for you. And 44, beautiful master number coming in here. I mean, look at this kind of vortex of energy that's being created from the crow here. And, you know, eclipse seasons can certainly be expressed by way of that storm that kind of rips through our life in some way. But it can also, like, in its wake, like, you know, break things wide open, and so that we see opportunity where we'd never seen it before. We see something within ourselves that we'd kind of layered so much crap, and there's been so much muck that's been hiding it, that the diamond is now revealed. So having that courage and bravery, Three of Wands, the full energy here, the Emperor taking control and command and charging and driving it forward with that energy of the Chariot is exactly what we see as the opportunities for you through the course of June. I think it's really exciting. And this messenger, if you like, you know, from the spiritual realm, kind of really helping you to channel information, having people showing up for you by way of your guides and access to your higher self in ways that perhaps you've never been able to consistently hold on to in ways that you are going to be able to this month, is giving you that courage, that strength, and that tenacious outlook to say, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to go for it. It's like a time to be bold, absolutely. But bold initially within the way that you see yourself and the potential that you hold. even when you're ready to start taking those actions, remember, not everybody is always fully on board with the changes and the transitions that are going on within us, but you have to be relentless in that movement forward anyway. So you also have the bee spirit here, prosperity. I love that for you. Finding the nectar and the sweetness and the honey in your own life. What is it that I need? What nourishes me? What's going to give me the vitality and the vibrancy, the full, I'm going to have the courage to go after that. Of course, the bee is like a worker, right? So it's like we work for what we want. You know, it doesn't mean you have to work 24 hours a day, but there's this energetic work that needs to happen, the commanding, the accountability, the soul work, the spiritual work, and also knowing what you're good at and the realization of that coming to roost, coming home for you, and kind of really realizing perhaps where you've held yourself back, or you've suppressed it, or you've avoided, you know, aspects of what your purpose should be. And that, you know, our inner wealth, our prosperity, our abundance like flows to us when we're doing things that we love and we're in an energy of feeling that sense of joy for life. And so anyone or anything that's draining you, sharply highlighted on the big screen in the month of June. In fact, perhaps already, you know, taken out of your life significantly over the course of this chapter, so that you have space to breathe and the opportunity to step into what you're meant to. So your astrology card is the trine. I love that. Angelic support, harmony, and perfect flow. Now we have the sun trining Saturn on the 3rd of the month. Beautiful date to look out for. We have Venus trining Neptune on the solstice, and the sun trining Jupiter on the 23rd of this month. So 3 beautiful dates to be working with, the 3rd, the 21st, the 23rd, as you tap into that flow, that harmonization, and also to reach out for that angelic support and the guides that surround you. Ask for signs on these days and be prepared to witness some really beautiful miracles coming in this month that just help you to realize and feel more, I think, assured and validated in some of the things that you're thinking about and wanting to work towards. I love this energy for you. So Sagittarius, this is a general reading for June. If you'd like to join me for the extended, we're going to go ahead and pull some additional clarifying cards. I just invite you to first think about a question that might not have been answered in the main reading. We'll go ahead and pull a couple of cards for that one for you. You can find the extended readings by looking at the description box and the comment sections underneath the video. There's a link for that to find them on my website. And I appreciate any of those that join me. So we're just clarifying this main reading now. We've got the 7 of Wands coming in there with the 3 of Wands. I love that. Another Ace of Pentacles. Beautiful. And Page of Wands. Things really opening up. Communication, networking, really important for you through the course of this month. We have the 7 of Pentacles coming in here. 6 of Swords. You're on the move. 2 of Pentacles. Yeah, definitely some important choices and decisions coming your way. There's energy and passion. And, you know, that could feel super intense, especially from a relationship perspective for some of you this month, you know. We have to keep pushing through some of the hard moments and the difficult conversations, because it's worth it. There's such a sense of like what lies on the other side, you know, and it's like you can see it, you can feel it, you can almost taste it, and yet it's just like something that's not quite fallen into place or aligned yet. Okay, interesting. Another Fool showing up here. Some beautiful major arcana cards coming in to indicate some of the fated events that are going to be taking place for you this June. Another Three of Wands coming in, Saggy. Okay, Queen of Cups. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed. If you have, please do drop me a like and a comment. Otherwise, I'm going to connect with you in the extended if you're joining me. And I'm going to wish you beautiful blessings for June. And I'll catch up with you next month. Take good care. Bye for now.